Ryan. Ooh, that sounds ominous. Hey, Steve, it is so good to see you. So I want to sort of kick off with letting people know a little bit about who you are, because you're kind of a big deal. Steve McGowan is the RVP Shopper Activation and Strategic Partnerships lead. He leads shopper activation, shopper merchandising solutions team, strategic partnerships across Mondelēz International. He's gotten tons of awards for amazing work and really pushing the boundaries of what omnicommerce is. He's even a Path to Purchase Hall of Fame inductee. So this is a true honor for me to be here sitting with you to sort of share a little of thoughts on your business and how to sort of engage in this amazingly crazy world that we've lived in. So thank you again for the time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for the nice introduction. And I'm just thinking of that title is awfully long, and I'm not exactly sure what it means. So, but
it makes back in the day when we used to have business cards. It would have been amazing to see that.
It would have been around. Yeah, it would have wrapped around. Yeah.
All right, so we want to start with a little bit of fun, right? So you work on some amazing, iconic, and fun brands. So what's your favorite?
It's a tough choice. So Ani, as you know, I actually have 4 daughters. And of course, obviously you can't pick a favorite daughter, and I can't obviously pick a favorite brand. So the question's a little bit unfair, I'd say, but Mondelēz makes a ton of great brands, from fresh breath to indulgent snacking to healthy snacking to sore throats. So how about I do like lately? So my favorite brands, if you will, lately. How about that?
All right.
I've been on kind of like this Triscuit Good Thins kick in between all these Zoom calls or team calls. I've been totally into kind of snacking on those while I'm, kind of dashing from meeting to meeting. And I'm also a huge Trident fan. I probably have a pack. I always have a pack like right near me. So I'm a huge Trident fan, and then obviously can't beat Cadbury chocolate.
Awesome. Salty snacks, gum, and chocolate.
Yeah.
All right, but come on, you didn't mention like the one kicker, Oreo?
I know. Well, it's the obvious one, right? Everybody loves Oreos. I love Oreos too. Different flavors. My favorite is probably the mint Oreos. So mint. I'm a big mint fan. But I got a question back to you to make this a little bit more fun and interactive. Everybody's kind of got their ritual about how they, eat Oreos. Some people the twist, lick, and dunk. Other people like fully submerge and shot glass it, if you will. I'll give you a little bit of time. I'll tell you mine. So in the country, about 65% of the population likes the cream better than a cookie. I'm actually one of the weird ones. I actually like the cookie better than the cream. So I'm kind of, the way I eat my Oreo cookies, I kind of split it in half, throw half in my mouth, eat it, and then throw the other half in my mouth. That's kind of my, not a very unique one, but just kind of my style. How about yourself?
Well, heck, I'm a surround sound marketer, and so I'm a surround sound eater as well. So I'm all about the full experience. Take the cookie, dunk it in the milk, and it all goes in, so you can mix all those flavors together. That's been truly my go-to. I absolutely love the product. And I'm a classic Oreo fan, by the way. And the flavors are amazing, but I always go back to the classics.
Awesome.
Hey, we can certainly talk about your products all day long because they're totally amazing. But let's get talking to a little bit about your business. In your role, what's really changed in the past several years? What's been the highlights of change?
There's been a ton of changes in the marketplace, obviously, and the changes obviously all kind of driven by shopper demands, changes in consumer behavior, if you will, and then retail initiatives. And obviously, with this shift in human behavior, has caused kind of businesses to adjust, right? So Mondelēz has had to adjust as well. So the way we market, the way we sell, how we communicate, how often we market, and who we market to has all been super impacted. The consumer has so much more control than she did or he did, than years ago, and they have so much more. They want much more integrity with their data. So they're not going to stand for kind of I call it phony or useless advertising anymore, because all they'll do is just scroll by it, right? They want real, authentic, and transparent messaging and programming. Brands need to have that always-on mentality, and this creates kind of that seamless, if you will, frictionless shopping experience. These changes, as I mentioned, has caused Mondelēz obviously to work a lot harder and work a lot harder with our partners to ensure that we're communicating with the right people at the right time with the right message. And this has driven a lot of Mondelēz to work harder to be, kind of work with our trusted partners. We need strategic, collaborative, and transparent partners. And obviously, kind of all these changes, as we just kind of alluded to, they've all been facilitated by obviously the on-the-go lifestyles we all live, and obviously the the mass adoption of the smartphone.
Yeah, and being right on message is so true for today's brands to excel. Can you be a little bit more specific on how you guys deliver on that?
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple examples. So let's talk about our specific partnership, right? So we've had a long history with Geometry and VMLY&R. And 10 years ago, we used to create concepts that all centered around kind of getting, if you will, a display in store or mentioned in a feature, if you will. Then about kind of like 7 years ago, we put a process in place with you guys where we said all concepts and all activation had to have some sort of digital component to them. Then about 4 years ago, we insisted that all concepts and activation actually leverage that digital and actually put it in the marketplace. And 2 to 3 years ago, we said all concepts and activation need to be all commerce enabled. And then kind of over the past 18 to 24 months or 12 to 18 months, if you will, we've included all full omni-commerce or full e-com behavior tactics into our Omni programming. And just kind of to highlight it, if you will, in a few different ways, I just want to kind of a couple more examples. One is, from an inside data perspective. Second is from a spend, and then third is obviously from a programming perspective. So from an inside and data perspective, if you will, just kind of some facts, if you will. So pre-COVID, only 49% of sales were digitally influenced. Right now, that number is at 62, 63%. Like that's a big jump. E-commerce sales, grocery sales, that is, which is where I compete, were only 3% of sales in 2018. That ballooned up to 10% and is projected to be 20% of our total sales by 2024, 2025. Mm-hmm. And at almost 80% of consumers who get exposed to online grocery are going to continue, and 75% say they're going to continue with those online purchases. So lots of, kind of data kind of pointing us in that direction. From a spend perspective, from a Mondelēz, if you will, we track our shopper marketing spend. So we measure it, we track it, we know what customers we spend with, we know what tactics we employ, and we have developed kind of and leveraged proprietary, if you will, ROI models to help us improve our programming over the last 5 years. For instance, for every dollar we spend on shopper marketing, we know about 50% of that goes against working media. So such as think of things like digital banner ads, click to cart with partners, text or emails, influencer marketing, et cetera, anything along those lines. So over that, kind of that short 4 to 5 year horizon, our spend was like the low 20s to now it's 50% of working media as a percent of a dollar that we spend. And from a programming perspective, just to kind of give you an example to kind of bring this to light is, we've evolved our programming to be fully integrated. So I'll give you for instance, on a program that Jen Mason ran for us at Target recently called Beach Bash, excuse me. It featured our candy brands, so Swedish Fish and Sour Patch, shout out to those brands. The creative was all around getting people to transport themselves to a beach party in the dead of winter. So think about Target, dead of winter, Beach Bash, like Minneapolis headquarter, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, all right. The program had all the typical in-store elements of, display and point of sale. But from a digital perspective, we partnered with a company called Ripple Suite to try to bring this beach party to life, leveraging their micro influencers who had true affinity for our brands. These influencers share their own beach party via the, kind of their social channels to drive engagement and, kind of engage with their followers. They asked their followers to kind of create unique beach inspired recipes as well for a chance to win, kind of their very own beach party. And then obviously we promoted that program via Roundel Media. And lastly, we connected that with a Target Circle offer, which kind of bring the whole thing to life. We also, I forgot to say, we also kind of linked in some external media as well. So we linked in with Pinterest for awe-inspiring, kind of creative solutions. So everybody's kind of flipping through Pinterest during the kind of dead of winter, like, where am I going to go on vacation? So we targeted people that were, kind of keywording vacation and beach, beach themes to tie back to bring this whole strategy life. So those kind of 3 different ways to bring, how we market to life a little bit for you.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? So as a surround sound eater and I love the surround sound approach to bringing these brands and bringing these ideas to life to intercept with shoppers. And you have an amazing portfolio, right? So for those that are not on the cutting edge of the awesome brands in the world, Oreos, Chips Ahoy, Ritz, Triscuit, Charlotte Halls, all are part of the world that you lead. I mean, big challenges this past year, no doubt you faced as you were trying to get these to people's homes, to consumers' homes. Can you tell us a little bit about what this past year was like for you, and how that sort of like full funnel approach sort of has deviated or changed or evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously been an eventful year for all of us. So like, using this as an example, right? So this beautiful background, talking to you from my standing desk in my basement, and as opposed to like, being live with people, right? So it's just been a super eventful, kind of 18 months for everybody, right? So the changes to our daily lives been obviously super drastic. How we communicate like this way versus, kind of meeting in person, how we interact, how we learn. I'm watching my kids, like how they learn, how they get educated, how we collaborate, um, Teams or Zoom or whatever the case may be, how we motivate people and how we show up and, kind of like be present with people, versus like, it's easy to get disconnected, kind of on a computer screen, if you will. So a lot has changed for us over the last year. So, obviously you kind of mentioned some of the brands, and obviously I'm super blessed to work on a wonderful portfolio of brands at Mondelēz, right? So, and our mission, if you will, is to bring delicious moments of joy to our consumers and shoppers, right? So that's our goal. And we look to provide, kind of reasonable snacks and, kind of those small little indulgences to our shoppers and consumers at that affordable value. And, kind of fun fact is, for every 4 homes, 3 of them have a Mondelēz product in them. And so if you go through your pantry, you'll probably most likely kind of find one of our products, which is awesome, right? Um, so as I mentioned, kind of truly blessed to work on these great brands that you mentioned. There's some other great nostalgic favorites that saw like a huge resurgence during COVID as consumer shoppers were kind of reaching for those nostalgic brands that they knew and trust. So brands like Nilla wafers, Nutter Butter, Premium crackers, Honey Made Graham. So kind of brands that have been around for a long time, that have lots of loyal following, but kind of have their place, if you will. But all those brands saw huge increases in household penetration as consumer came back to them and their respective franchises because they knew and trusted the brands. I'd say probably the hardest thing for us over the past 18 months has really been keeping our snacks in supply.
Mhm.
And as you know, we're fortunate to kind of have a DSD sales organization. So we've had thousands of frontline workers across the stores in the U.S. over the past 18 months. Pulling product off of trucks, breaking down, moving product from the back of the room or back of the store, if you will, to the shelves, organizing the shelves, just for shoppers to easily grab and grow, or even appropriately set up a store to kind of fast track their click and collect or e-com functions. So the DSD resource has been, really instrumental in helping us to kind of also move product from, one store within a chain to another store that may be out of supply. So it's really about, kind of maintaining the adequate supply and minimizing that out of stock position. Because as you think about it, over the last 18 months, last thing people want to do is they didn't want to leave their house. And then when they did leave their house, for instance, if they went shopping, they wanted to get what they wanted to get, right? And if they didn't want to like go to a store and have it be out of stock. So we did our best to try to make sure that our portfolio is in stock and is at many places, and we focus really on our core SKUs, so that if you went into a store, you may not find every flavor as we talked about on Oreo, but you're going to find the core flavors that were there, and try to keep our shoppers as much as happy, if you will, as possible. And then from my specific
Mhm.
shopper marketing perspective, there's probably 2 areas that we really focused against over the past 18 months. The first is probably agile planning with our customers. And we had to collaborate a lot, and having great partners and great from a retail perspective has really enabled that, to ensure that we have the right plans in place against the right brands and really against the right SKUs, as I kind of just mentioned. The last thing you want to do is kind of feature a SKU in a digital banner ad that is not on shelf, right? So we want to make sure we have the appropriate in-stock positions on the SKUs that we kind of were talking about. So that dynamic approach to planning has really been, instrumental to helping us, achieve deliver against our shopper and our retailers' expectations. And then probably second is, that full commerce marketing, if you will. So as we kind of talked a little bit about a little earlier, our plans have really shifted over time to focus a lot more digitally, as I kind of mentioned and alluded to earlier about,
Mhm.
the percent of spend as well as our tactics and programs. And the last 2 years has really obviously accelerated this approach, and our plans are now full funnel programs that reach, kind of consumers during the awareness stage, kind of reinforce that message during the consideration stage, and ultimately, kind of help drive conversion at that moment of truth. So we've worked really hard to kind of create plans that allow consumers to seamlessly convert. If you're sitting on your couch, by leveraging kind of quick add to cart functionality, deliver it to your house, or
Yep.
drive up and pick up, or as easily if if you're running through the store, it's quickly there on a display, or it's quickly there on shelf. You can quick throw it in your cart and move on. So we try to do both.
Well, I'm happy to report, and guiltily reporting, I heavily over-index on your basic number in terms of number of products in my household. And I've told you this before. I was very, very happy the times that I did walk into a retail store that I saw a nice huge end cap of Oreos just as I was finishing my shopping. So I love the work that you guys have done, and obviously COVID has had a huge impact on digital engagement, fulfillment, and convenience. I mean, really, convenience as we know it, is that even still important? How is that totally redefined? But I also want to make sure that we double dip a little bit on this digital to engage shopper. I think when you deal with your categories of brands, taste and sense is so important. So how have you shifted to sort of embrace digital in spite of the senses?
Yeah, I think there are two great questions in that. One is, first is about first is about convenience, right? So it is totally true about convenience. I believe that the number one attribute that shoppers claim for the reason for kind of why they buy, where they buy, what they buy, is convenience. So that's been a kind of a top 1, 2, or 3 attribute for the last 20 years, as I recall it. And the other thing that really has changed is COVID has kind of changed how people think about convenience. For instance, like, so just using it as an example, like, previously maybe convenience meant kind of going through the grocery store with different checkout options, right? So I want full service, or I want a self checkout line.
Right.
Now, like, after COVID, like, convenience means I want full service, I want self checkout, I want scan and go, I want, buy online, pick up in store, or I want a delivery service. Like, you have to be able to provide both. So, like, I think just the definition of convenience has kind of changed, but convenience is still a super important factor, and shopper size. If you think about like your own personal shopping experiences or my own personal shopping experiences, like, convenience, rises to the top. Convenience and value is usually the top two. So, and then your question about digital and taste, and kind of how the implications, it's spot on, right? So, at Mondelēz, we kind of talked about the brands that I have the pleasure of selling and working on, and a lot of those brands are really highly impulsive, highly incremental, and highly expandable categories. So great categories to work on. But those categories of brands are, a lot is driven by taste, right? So people taste them and say, oh, I want to buy those. So how do we, prior to COVID, we relied a lot on tactics that, kind of leverage that aspect of the great tasting nature of the products. And probably the biggest one, just using it, for instance, has probably been in-store sampling, right? So in-store sampling kind of went away during COVID. So with that tactic being removed from the arsenal, like, how are we going to communicate to our shoppers about our products and how great they taste and whatever? So we work really hard on capturing kind of our consumers and, shoppers' attention, if you will, in that pre-shop or that discovery phase, to kind of bring the brand top of mind for them. And as kind of a good thing, as I mentioned previously, it's great that our brands have that long and celebrated history with our consumers. So we just need to bring kind of those fond memories to, like I mentioned, kind of top of mind. And we focused a lot on, relevant messaging to really highly target consumers and shoppers, leveraging our partnerships with various our retail media network partners. We look to simple add to cart options to help drive a seamless experience for shoppers.
Yep.
And then we also, obviously, as you know, you guys help develop, we also showcase some really great mouth-watering digital content or digital recipes to ensure Mondelēz brands were top of mind. And then lastly, we have partnered with some external partners as well, where discovery and awareness was key. I kind of mentioned Pinterest earlier. I'll mention them again because, where moms are going for busy, kind of that busy lifestyle, like, hey, what new snack? Hey, my kids are in the house for, day 185. What can I give them as a snack, or what can I make for a dinner, or what kind of escape can I do, from that lockdown? So we did a lot of communication from that standpoint as well, just to deliver against that taste aspect and kind of the great brands that I work on.
That's awesome. I want to pull back. So we're about at 7 minutes, and so I want to make sure people get a chance to sort of get some thoughts from a true veteran in the space. So, what do you see as the highlights of commerce today? So just kind of get back a little bit more.
Well, it's a super dynamic space to be in, right? So there's so much kind of evolving that makes my job challenging but super fun, right? So the explosion of e-commerce in the food, as I mentioned earlier, over the last 18 months has really been reframed kind of how we think about funding support, creative partners, tactics, and then measurement. In addition, the ever increasing raising the bar by our shoppers, right? So that and our retail partners challenges us as an industry to create simpler program that is just impactful. Shoppers are bombarded with messages throughout the day, and given so much content, right? So just think about the average person spends, I think it's 5 to 6 hours a day on their cell phone in non-work related activities, like so just scrolling stuff. The fact that I always love to kind of quote is the average person scrolls through 400 feet of content on a daily basis. Like that's just crazy amount. So like to break through, you have to have something that's simple yet impactful. So that, kind of creating that thing that's simple and impactful, but also like it also ties to that full funnel that makes it easy for them. So the content's got to be super engaging, but it's got to be quick, right? So think about the apps that are really working really right now. They're all about quick snippets and stuff. It has to be aspiring but lofty, and it has to be authentic but not boring, right? So you have to come across it really is authentic, and kind of in order to change behavior with our shoppers, like you got to deliver something that is meaningful to them and breaks through all that clutter that I was mentioning. So connecting with our shoppers and consumers includes the integration of kind of brand awareness, marketing, shopper marketing, and even e-commerce. The integration of these three disciplines is really key, and those working together is kind of something that we've been working on, is how to build our long-term sustainable growth model for Mondelēz.
Yeah, you're right. And connecting to shoppers really on their journey can be a super heavy data task, right? We've seen data really become a cornerstone in our space. How has your data strategy been evolving to reflect this full funnel engagement approach?
It's also a super tough question. And something I think we all work against, right? So I think about data in a couple of different ways, and it may be a little bit different than ways some other people are maybe thinking I'm going to answer the question. But I first think about like our shopper marketing mix modeling data that we have. So the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, right? So we partnered with the Mars agency and leveraged their Maryland tool to really help glean the insights out of our programming and the respective ROIs. We want to understand like kind of what, when and where and why things have worked. We don't obviously overcorrect on 1 or 2 data points, but as we see trends, we look to pivot, again, that funding, programming, brands, and tactics based on, kind of the data, if you will. So in addition, kind of like this rich data, if you will, from a post-event analysis perspective, we also partner with our data partners, right? So we get a lot from them, be it detailed results from our vendor partners with key learnings and actions for the next program, to our retail partners where we can leverage and partner and leverage their loyalty card data to potentially get under the hood of, why our program was successful. Did it bring in new households? Did it increase buy rate, et cetera, whatever it may be, kind of those 2 pieces of data that are the things that I'm most focused on, or at least right now. You bring
up the epic challenge, right? That balance of that easy to justify capture of consumers that happens at the bottom of the funnel with those consumer demand at the attention at the top. So how do you balance those?
It's a tough balance. I kind of mentioned the shopper marketing spend using the partnership with the Mars agency. We also we're able to kind of stack this model up next to our internal brand marketing mix models and other measurement studies to see, where the best place to spend the dollar is, right? So the model provides a, detail level of retailer ROI, brand ROI, program level ROI, and tactical level ROIs. And we use this information to help inform kind of like investment choices, as I mentioned earlier. The consistent modeling approach, if you will, across brand, shopper, trade, allows, kind of output allows us to make fact-based decisions on a consistent, data perspective. The struggle for me in the marketplace is that everyone is kind of reporting back on different metrics. And it's kind of hard to ascertain like what's the best, right? So we'll get back different measurement of tactics that, kind of maybe highlight click-through rates, CPMs, ROAS, IROAS, attributive sales, et cetera. Like there's all kinds of stuff. And then unfortunately, the window for reporting back is also like on a different time. Some are, 2 weeks, some are 4 weeks, some are 8 weeks, some are 12 weeks, some are 16. So the consistency is kind of something that we're looking for, and, kind of timeliness, if you will. So in addition, kind of we're totally aware that our ROI models sometimes artificially suppress the ROI of a trial awareness generating program or a tactic, right? So we need to be cognizant of that and extend the measurement period So we just don't want to look at kind of the short-term incremental, sales bump, but we want to look at kind of that longer-term lifetime value of bringing a new consumer into the franchise. And that's truly how you get like a good ROI on different tactics, if you will. So therefore, kind of like the full funnel approach combines both kind of that brand building, as kind of you were saying, and that trial programming, along with that lower funnel conversion marketing. All of that is brought together via this measurement which I was mentioning earlier. Like, so we can kind of evaluate where we should kind of tilt the spend one way or the other.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some research, right? So there's the old 60-40 rule. Kind of states the most effective communication or advertising is 60% brand, 40% activation. It just kind of backs up the rationale that like you need a balanced approach. So every brand is going to be a little bit different. Every brand, as I mentioned before, like our brands are highly impulsive, highly incremental. So like where you spend the money in the funnel is probably different than something that's maybe more of a planned purchase. So, but I think it's having the right balance for your portfolio makes the most sense.
So with all this data, are you seeing any shifts in consumer preference as a result? The fun part about data.
Yes. Yeah. The fun part of data is actually analyzing, right? So yeah, I think I've seen two things at least. As I mentioned, there's kind of been that return to nostalgic brands. So brands that, kind of, and trust. So many of the Mondelēz brands kind of fall in that category, and we've seen increases in household penetration and retention rate. In addition, there's been an increase in private label. And that's kind of the second trend. And private label has grown, I think, because of two reasons. One is, obviously focus on price, given the uncertainty, given the economy, given, where things are going, given the higher costs. And I think the second area is kind of because of availability. Like, so if you think about a year ago or 18 months ago, whatever, when you were shopping, so you went into a store, if you're going to go to a store, you were running through the store, running to the category you need, and you were grabbing what was there. So the availability. If you were online, similarly, right? So what was online and available, that's where you're grabbing. So I think what was available got increased traffic and got increased sales. So I think, the availability kind of drove the increase in private label, as well as it actually kind of drove a little bit of the increase on the sales that are of our Mondelēz nostalgic brands.
So we got 5 minutes left. So I wanted to you've done such amazing work across from a marketing perspective. You're a big champion of full commerce. So can you give us a 10,000 foot perspective of what full funnel commerce means and looks like at Mondelēz?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's guided by objectives, right? So you have to set the objective up front, and a full commerce plan may look different depending on the brand, retailer, time of year, seasonality, overall objective. So for instance, right? So let me give you a hypothetical. Let's talk about Nilla wafers, which is one of those nostalgic brands at Kroger during, say, Q3. The brand has been around for a long time. It's used as a staple. It saw a resurgence, as I mentioned before, during COVID. Many people were into baking, use Nilla wafers for holidays. Our full funnel plan could look like something like start with the objective. So what's the objective? We're trying to drive sales during Q3. Nilla wafers, not a strong time period for Nilla wafers. It's a season, it's not a high season for the brand. It's more holiday, right? So could we create meaningful consumer content that would inspire people to buy Nilla wafers during that window? For instance, could Nilla wafers create simple back to school or football recipes that was super easy to make and pleasing to mom, and then more importantly to the kids, right? Don't think about like, when I talk about Nilla wafer, people are like, oh, grandma's Nilla wafer banana pudding. Don't think about that, but think about like, there's all kinds of hacks out there, right? So there's a hack out there for Nilla wafer walking taco, right? So think about things like that that is more relevant to, kind of society right now. So a riff on a great food trend, leveraging a classic product, delivering in a new delivery mechanism. So those are kind of things that we would want to do. And then obviously that plan would talk about like full funnel, right? So you talk about national awareness, communicating the relevancy of Nilla wafers during Q3, simple curated recipes for the Kroger shopper that fit her lifestyle and taste preferences, communication of the message, brought all the way through the line on Kroger.com, Kroger email blast, 8451. The messaging would ladder up to the national brand awareness. We'd obviously easy click and load to cart recipes. We'd also try and feature the recipes on our obviously in-store activation. And obviously we'd close the conversion loop with some sort of, kind of coupon that linked the recipe. So our Nilla wafers and whatever was in the recipe, if you will. So the full, like kind of leveraging every aspect of the funnel, if you will.
I love the complexity plan because it sort of shows you how shopper marketing has evolved, right? Remember when it was like, you could have answered that question with like in store and a shelf top, and how vast this is sort of evolved. We have 1 minute. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you super quickly to pick something outside of Mondelēz, a brand that's really exceeding in this commerce space, that's pushing innovation. Who would that be? And then from that, we'll kick it over, I think, to Q&A. So you have some really cool ones.
Tough question. I think Coke has done some good work. Hershey's done some good work. M&M's does some good work as well. Outside of food, I'd say, think about like Burger King, the whole Whopper detour, Popeyes, the kind of the playoff, the Chick-fil-A. I think all those have been, kind of the message has been clear. It's been simple, it's consistent, it's compelling, it's engaging, and it's kind of all touches. And then P&G does a really nice job in this space as well. So, but I think the key is, I don't think anybody's kind of like, figured the space out totally for every little occasion. I think there's pockets of good work, as I kind of just mentioned. But I think there's hope, if you will, for all of us out there. If we partner with our, kind of our respective partners or agencies or brands or retail partners to test, iterate, evolve, scale, I think there's opportunity for us to kind of, push this in the right place. Because I don't think anybody's, like I said, kind of totally cracked the code on this one yet.
Yeah, the innovation is definitely out there. People are really pushing the boundaries of what commerce can do. It's a thrilling space to be in. I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna flip over to, because I want to make sure we cover these. We have a couple of other stuff on deck in case we have time on the back end to drill you a little bit more on what you love. But I wanted to make sure I cover some of these questions. These are actually pretty neat. I think you'll enjoy them. So we have Ushin Devar, who says hi. Over the past year, CPG food brands have seen new consumers come into the portfolio. Are you seeing these consumers continuing to purchase? Is a great question. Can you share some examples of strategies you're taking to keep these consumers brand loyal post-COVID? Something I know you're very familiar with, and increasing usage occasions. And he's from, or they are from Meredith Digital.
So that was like
I know. So let's break it down. New consumers come into the portfolio.
Yeah. So we've seen that. I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, like with new consumers coming in, especially during COVID. Like again, I mentioned our DSD sales force and our large portfolio brands that people knew. So new people came in based on the products they knew from kind of either their childhood or something they'd known from the past, or literally it was the product in the category that was available and it was sitting right there for them, either on shelf or it was online available. So we saw new people. We definitely saw new people come in.
And then how are you keeping them? Yeah, you can go into.
So second part is, how do we keep them? It's obviously getting a person in is tough, right? So then keeping them obviously is just as tough. So you got to continually, kind of provide them. It's kind of the old mantra is kind of like, you got to like continue to talk to them. So you got to continue to kind of message them. So partnering with our retail partners, like finding out who those people are that are new to the franchise and then communicating them in a specific manner. I kind of mentioned my Kroger example before, like you can target directly. So we know what new people came in, and then we could target them directly to, provide them appropriate messaging, content, even value offers, if you will, or even kind of drive them up the purchase funnel, the high, medium, light. I'm trying to think of what that calls. Anyway, try to drive them up the purchase cycle, if you will, purchase cycle.
Yep.
So yeah, there are lots of different ways to do it.
Yep, and you also drive them across your portfolio. I think is super smart, given that you have such a strong taste forward portfolio. Awesome. So, and then I have Nick. I may screw up your last name, Peich. Does Steve have an opinion on where his omni-channel efforts have the most impact? Would that be grocery, convenience, or big box, etc.?
It's a great question because it depends on how you define omni-commerce, if you will, right? So we've done some really great stuff, if you will, from a convenience channel, which I would say is full omni shopper activation, where we've linked in with the, what's important to that shopper and then what's important to that retailer. For instance, like we've done a ton of stuff with food service, which is super important to those retailers, the people that are going into those stores to go buy products. So like we've done Oreo hot chocolate, Oreo donuts, if you will. Like, so as people kind of go into go into convenience stores, they're looking for those kind of things. And then we've also kind of rounded out with communicating the messaging and then obviously offering on our base products as well. So like we've done some stuff there, which is not the traditional, I'll put in quotes, traditional kind of omni-commerce as you think about it, but it's like it's the full activation, if you will, with what's available at those retailers. I'd say the biggest place where we've had the most impact, if you will, has really probably been in kind of the bigger stores, if you will. So I'd say mass and groceries, just because of their capabilities that we're able to leverage.
Yeah, they're more developed, right, in that full funnel sort of touch points. But we're seeing a lot of speed happening across a lot of different kinds of retailers.
Yeah, they're more developed, they're more willing to test. But then I'd also say kind of some of even the mid-tier, kind of food guys are actually on the cusp, but they're willing to test more because they're trying to leapfrog some of the bigger guys. So I would say that, kind of don't necessarily cut anybody out. Keep an open mind to all the players in the marketplace, because some are great because of scale, some are great because they're willing to really push the envelope from a testing perspective.
Yeah, that's amazing. Somebody in a different, not in the Q&A, in the chat, tossed this question because it seems like the chat is riddled with people giving their opinions on which is the best Oreo. So this question came up. I know, right? This question came up. What are your thoughts on how consumers respond to limited edition or exclusive products? And I love this because I know that obviously Oreos has such a wide portfolio, and what the role is of these new launches as you grow and connect to shoppers.
Yeah, the role of our limited edition or LTOs, as we call them, are really to bring in new households into the franchise. It's really, that is the role of those products. So we launched those to bring in new people. So be it Lady Gaga Oreos or Pokemon Oreos, those are to try to attract new people that may not have been in the franchise before, to bring them into it's really a household penetration play. So that is the objective behind those launches.
Yeah, well, I'm a repeat sucker for all of them. Yeah. Mark Rabucci says, the question is, do you like AT&T's strategy of having the same offering for new customers and existing? So kind of a different take on sort of customized conversations, right?
Yeah. I like it as a marketing play. So it immediately, I think I know the commercial, right? So the guy pushing the thing or turning the thing, right? I like it from a marketing perspective because like it's not necessarily alienating kind of your core consumers, because you kind of, and it's trying to bring in new users. So they're trying to grow their, if you will, household penetration, right? So I like it from a marketing perspective. So I think it makes sense. There may be something down the road that they have to provide their core consumers or the consumers that were there before. So not just getting the same deal, but maybe there's something that, kind of like something that the T-Mobile does, like the T-Mobile Tuesdays, as you join, like you get special offers, et cetera. Maybe there's something like some sort of loyalty play that, rewards the loyal consumers.
Well, it's sort of like the antithesis of a little bit of what we've been doing in from a CPG perspective, is that industry has so many twists and turns. It's sort of like the simplification of a message, which I think is something that the organization does so well. It's very focused on, here it is, and here's what it does, and here's what and honestly, in the end, it's all about bringing those smiles to shoppers.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier before. It's like it's something that's got to be quick and breaks through. Like, so the fact that I knew the commercial, you knew the commercial, right? It obviously is broken through, and so I think it is done well for that standpoint. That's
awesome. So we're done with the question. I want to end on some fun stuff. Okay. Hey, what's your favorite app and why?
It's actually TikTok. So and I got into it because of my kids. It's super entertaining if anybody's used it. And you kind of get lost in it sometimes. So you got to be careful about like how much time you spend or waste on it, I should say, like because you can kind of get down the rabbit hole, if you will. But it's a great. So I have 4 kids that are, aged from 15 to 21. So it's a great way for me to kind of stay relevant with you in their lives, right? So I'll find TikToks that I really like and I'll send it to them, and they'll do the same for me that are kind of relevant, hacks on life, if you will. And then occasionally my kids will, kind of rope me into doing, a dance with them or something to obviously to make fun of me on their private stories or whatever. But, it's all good, right?
All right. So my new mission is going to have hacking your daughter's private chats. Yeah. Ryan, I see you popped up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't